Hello. Before we begin the course, I wanted to give you a bit of an orientation. One of the things that we know from nearly 80 years of research on how people learn is that experts tend to learn difficult material much better than individuals who do not have that expertise. One of the reasons that they can do that is they have a framework that helps them to organize incoming information. What I want to do with a very quick presentation here is to give you that framework so that you understand what it is we're studying and why we're studying it. So we're going to look at three questions. What do we study in this field of psychopathology, and why do we study it? And what do we hope to learn from it? With these slides and all of the slides, whenever you go to the next slide, you will get a different presentation so you can advance the slides at your own pace. In this course, we are interested in psychopathology. What is that? Psychopathology is a psychological disorder, but it's what we call in science a construct. We can't touch it, we can't feel it, we can't see it directly, we can only see it indirectly. But we believe that it's there. Now there are other constructs in science. Gravity is a concept. We can't see it, but we can see what its effects are. So we're interested in this concept of psychopathology. Because we can't see the concept of psychopathology, we need some way of measuring its presence, and we do that with a process called diagnosis. A good part of this course will be focused on how we make the individual diagnoses for each of the various forms of psychopathology that we have. Now with psychopathology, we want to know why it is that some people tend to develop psychopathology and others do not. What are the characteristics of those individuals? We call those risk factors. Risk factors are not the only factors that can contribute to the likelihood of psychopathology. Our environment often makes some forms of psychopathology more likely to occur than others. And of course, it's not just risk factors and environment. The two together will often interact, which means they will produce more than the sum of their parts. So for example, some people may be more prone to being anxious in certain situations. If they go through life and do not experience a lot of anxiety-producing situations, their anxiety may be easily handled. But if they tend to be anxious and they're in situations that create a lot of anxiety, they are likely to over-respond and create some form of psychopathology. Now remember, we can't see psychopathology. All we can see is the diagnosis. And we're never sure if that diagnosis is as accurate as is possible. We'll see many examples in this course where our diagnostic criteria turned out to be less than optimal. In some cases, downright terrible. But once we have the diagnosis, we have the ability to look at an approximation of this thing that we're interested in, this construct of psychopathology. So what we do is we look at people with various diagnoses and we look at their clinical course. What happens to them over time? We look at various treatments and how well they respond or don't respond to the treatments. And we also look at this broad category of other variables, which is admittedly is pretty vague. So what are those other variables? Well, they're things in the environment that might contribute to psychopathology. They're characteristics of the individual or the experiences of the individual that might add to the risk factors. This single slide describes the entire process on which this course is built. We're trying to study something we can't see, psychopathology, by developing the best possible diagnoses, and then using that information to decide whether our diagnoses are accurate.